As people are trickling in, we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot of material to cover, so welcome. Great to see everybody. My name is Lara Hejtmanek. I'm the Managing Director of the Lang Entrepreneurship Center, the Center of all things venture capital and entrepreneurship here at CBS. Also an alum. It is actually my reunion as well, so I have the pleasure of not only introducing the session and our speaker today, but attending my own reunion at the same time. I like to say I found a way to never leave business school. So very excited to introduce Professor Angela Lee, who will lead the session today. It's called A Primer on Investing in Early Stage Startups. You'll also hear from 3 up-and-coming CBS founders who are here today, and they're going to talk about their innovative solutions to opportunities and problems that they are solving for. So today's speaker, Angela Lee, is a professor of practice and faculty director of the Lang Entrepreneurship Center. She teaches venture capital, leadership, and strategy courses here at CBS, starting her career in product management and then strategy consulting at McKinsey. She's a very active startup investor as well and founder of 37 Angels, an investing network that has evaluated over 20,000 startups. So you're going to hear a lot, have a treat from her today to hear a lot about how she looks at those startups. She's also a speaker, a sought-after speaker, having spoken at the White House, NASA, CNBC, Bloomberg, MSNBC, to name a few. And she's been recognized by various publications at Inc. as one of the 17 inspiring women to watch, Entrepreneur Magazine as one of 6 innovative women to watch, and also by Crain's as a notable woman in tech. She's also won numerous teaching awards here, including the Dean's Award for Teaching Excellence and the Singhvi Prize for Scholarship. Angela received her BA from UC Berkeley and her MBA from Columbia here in 2007. Please join me in welcoming Professor Angela Lee.
Thank you so much, Lara. Like Lara, I also find a way to never leave this wonderful, wonderful place, although we have a much nicer campus than you probably all remember going to, including myself. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about what it is that investors look for. It's a little snippet of content that comes from a course here called Foundations of Venture Capital. So as Lara mentioned, we're going to do a little bit of that, give you a quick update on everything that's been going on in the Lang Center since maybe some of you graduated, and then we're going to hear from 3 awesome founders. And there's some trivia with a chance to win some prizes, so keep your ears perked for that. Okay, so what I wanted to start with talking about is what is it that investors look for when looking at startups, and I like alliteration, so we're going to go through the 4P framework. People, problem, progress, and price. People being obviously the team, problem being, is it a large market? Progress being, is there any traction? And then price, are the deal terms fair? Which I will argue changes by the minute, and it's really hard to figure out what deal terms are fair these days. Let's start with people. So I just want to show you a real kind of pitch deck page that I get pretty often. Again, as Lara mentioned, we look at about 2,000 deals a year, invest in 10. And you can see here that these are 3 bright, smart, accomplished people. And that's great. And a lot of team slides look like this. A big mistake that I see founders make and that I see investors make is to not ask the question, is this the right team to be solving this problem, to be launching this company? And that's really our job as investors, is to say, okay, I know that they're smart, bright, accomplished, but what is the absolute core of this business, and are they the right people to solve it? Today, we all know that generative AI is a huge buzzword. I don't know how many of you listened to the last Y Combinator demo day. They do about 300 pitches. They do 300 one-minute-long pitches over the course of 2 mornings. It's a very intense couple of mornings. And I was starting to, get a little bit overwhelmed by all the pitches, so I just started counting the number of pitches that had the word AI in them. And the answer is 76%. And so when artificial intelligence is in 76% of pitch decks, you start to wonder, well, does the founding team really know how to do this? And I can't tell you how many times people are building stuff that they're not actually building anything technology, just a layer on top of ChatGPT, or they're outsourcing their AI or their algorithm development. So we are looking for founders. We're like, you are the right person to be starting this company. And we're looking for complementary founders. A story that I sometimes tell is I remember I was being pitched this company, and the founders were 3 guys who all went to Duke for undergrad, all played lacrosse, all were lawyers, and 2 of them were wearing the same Brooks Brothers shirt when they pitched me. So we are looking for complementary teams versus maybe people looking exactly the same. And that they're hiring people, again, because they're the best supply chain manager or the best CFO or the best whatever, not because they were roommates in college. I would be remiss if I were to talk about people without also talking a little bit about bias. So I just want to show you some data. I don't know how many of you know the tool DocSend, but DocSend is a document sending tool that a lot of founders use to send their pitch decks to venture capitalists. And what happens is that you are actually able to see time on each page. And when the founder is a female founder, then investors spend 50% more time looking on the traction page. Why is that? The reason why is because there's a lot of data to support this, that women are promoted based off of performance, and men are more often promoted based off of potential. And you see that, which is their VCs are scrutinizing the kind of traction page a little bit more when it's a female founder. The other thing is that they just spend a third less time looking at the fundraising page and a fifth less time looking at the deck overall. You can tell this in very exact, precise seconds on page and time on page. And so what do we do to overcome this? This is actually research that came out of Columbia Business School that some of you might have seen, which is when investors ask a male founder questions, they will ask them promotion-based questions. How are you going to become the next billion-dollar startup? And then when investors are talking to female founders, they will ask them prevention-based questions. How are you going to prevent Google, Amazon, Microsoft from stealing all of your market share? And so for the founders in the room who get asked a prevention-based question, answer it, because you need to answer the question you're asked, but then also answer the promotion-based question you were not asked. So that's on people, some kind of high-level things that we've seen over the years. On the problem side, as I mentioned before, we're looking for a really, really large market to invest in. As investors, we need really, really large exits in order for us to make our required investment returns. So I want to show you, again, a real pitch deck that I saw. So what they were doing is they were doing a store-agnostic wish list. So imagine I see a sweater I like at Nordstrom's, I see a pair of shoes I like, and I see a book on Amazon, and I've got all these things from different stores, and I put them all in a wish list, and I say, hey, friends, please buy me all these things for my upcoming birthday. It's a store-agnostic wish list. And this was on the founder's market sizing deck. I'm sure she's right? I'm sure that the gifting market is $500 billion. But is that relevant to how much money this founder can make? And we see this a lot, where founders will just throw these really fantastically large, usually billions, if not trillions of dollars, onto the slide deck to say, we have a huge market size. And then our job as investors is to say, well, how big is this market size really? How much revenue could this startup actually make? I'll give you a different example. Today, this company made medical-grade compression tights. And so you can basically do like micro-lymphatic drainage. And this is their market sizing slide. I'm sure that's true. I'm sure people are spending that much money on wearables and people are spending that much money on beauty, but does that tell you how much money a lymphatic drainage tight company can make? Probably not. And so our job as investors is to really filter through all that noise and say, well, how big is this market really? And as founders, you should be able to justify any number you put on a slide. The other question we have to ask ourselves is not just how large is the market, but what percentage of the market can this startup actually acquire? Does anyone want to guess what the largest ice cream, the most popular, I should say, ice cream maker is, and then what percentage of market share they might have? Any guesses? Haagen-Dazs, Ben & Jerry's, and then what about? Okay, and what percentage of market share do you think they have? Okay, you're actually all pretty close. So it is Ben & Jerry's, and it's about 7% in the US. It's about 7% of a $13 billion market. We're all eating a lot of ice cream. And so the reason why it's important to know that is if of all these brands that you're talking about, none of them have more than 5, 6, 7% of the market. So if I am a startup, by the way, we've been pitched to all of these startups. It's really fun diligence when you get to diligence ice cream. But when that happens, you have to recognize as an investor that wild success is that each of these startups is going to capture 1% of the market. I'm assuming a lot of us have had Jenny's ice cream recently. They're fantastically successful. They're certainly the breakout ice cream star of the last few years. They have about 0.5% of market share. So that's wild success. And you compare that to these companies that we all know and maybe love, right? And they have 50, 60, 70, in some cases 92% market share, like Google for search. And so as an investor, you have to ask yourself, okay, I'm going to this market, first of all, how big is it? But then am I going to capture 1% of the market, or am I going to potentially capture 92% of the search market like Google has? So that's our job as investors, is to assess that. And again, on the founder side, they have to defend both market size and then the percentage that they're going to get to. On the progress side, I get asked daily, or how much revenue customers do I need to have before I can pitch an angel or a VC? And the answer is you can pitch them when you have repeatable progress. So once a founder has built their customer acquisition engine, that is when they can typically pitch, I would say, a seed stage investor. If you're going after pre-seed, you can not have this built out yet. But if you are pitching a seed stage investor, then you typically need to have really figured out, when I do a Facebook ad, 1,000 impressions gets me this many customers, and it costs me, $1.50 to acquire each of those customers, and then I know how much that customer is spending with me. And that ratio has to be at least 3 to 1, meaning the customer has to be spending at least 3 times what it costs you to acquire that customer, which all of you learned in the marketing core. I don't know how long ago that was, but you all learned that in the marketing core, so just refreshing that for you. And we've had a lot of companies pitch us that have been on Shark Tank, that have been on Oprah. These are great things. But you look at their revenue, there's this huge spike. And while this is a positive thing, it's unfortunately not repeatable, not sustainable. We're looking for people who've built that customer acquisition machine. For those of you who want homework and some reading coming out of today, this is a really great book on customer acquisition. There are a couple of books called Traction, but this is the one by Gabriel Weinberg. And he walks, do I have it? Yes. You through the 19 different customer acquisition channels. So how exactly do you do influencer marketing? How exactly do you do content marketing? How exactly do you do email marketing? It's a really great handbook for founders who are actually trying to do that. But from an investor's perspective, what are the metrics and KPIs that I want to look for depending on the channel? And then finally, price. I could talk for the next 10 hours around how to fairly value a startup in the ecosystem. And for those of you who follow the venture market, things feel a little scary right now, and it is. But what I would encourage you as you're thinking about what's a fair valuation in the market, what's happening, is to really differentiate between the different players. So what do we know? We know that probably end of 2021, beginning of 2022 was kind of the peak of venture market frothiness, and there was a huge crash at the Q1 of 2022. A lot of people think that we're kind of at the bottom of that, and things are improving. VC sentiment is much better now than it was a year ago. So as a founder, I think it's a really good time to kind of emerge out of the woodwork and start fundraising, and we are seeing a lot more deal flow, which is great. As a VC that's raising a fund, it's really, really tough for VCs to raise funds right now. I'm assuming for those of you who follow it know that in 2023, 2/3 less money was raised by VCs than in 2021. So huge drop-off, especially for emerging fund managers. And LPs aren't getting their money back, right? The people who invest in VC funds, they're not getting their money back because the IPO market's been very slow and the M&A market's been very slow. So things are looking different depending on which side of the ecosystem you sit on. But the good news is I think a lot of people think that this year's going to be a lot better. There's much more positive sentiment. So I'm personally very optimistic. And the market needed a correction, so I don't think it's a bad thing at all. So that's what we, very, very high level overview of that. I think the last lesson I wanted to share is a lot of people ask me, how do I pick where I want to invest within the ecosystem? And I find that a lot of investors really kind of think, well, what's trendy? So right now, everybody wants to invest in generative AI because that seems like the next new frontier. And I would really encourage you to not ignore the trends, but don't let the trends guide you. Oftentimes, trends are lagging indicators. And instead, I would really look at the intersection of these 3 things. I mean, frankly, this is where I would look in career in general, not just in kind of venture capital investing. But I would really ask myself, where am I an expert? What do I really, really know where I have unique insights that nobody else does? Secondly, I would ask where my interest is, right? If you are going to be investing in a space or frankly being a founder in a space, you are going to live and breathe that market for the next 5 to 10 years of your life. You should get jazzed to read about that thing and go to conferences and talk to subject matter experts. And then finally, network. This is especially true on both sides, whether you're a founder or an entrepreneur. you need network density to be successful, right? So think about where you have network density. As an investor, it will help you to better source deal flow, better select the best companies, and also best support companies post-investment. And so I would almost say that third one is the most important in terms of correlation with venture success. So really thinking about that. So I'm going to pause before I go into talking a little bit about what's going on with Lang. So if there are any questions about anything I've said so far. And then could I also get a quick time check? Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Good morning. My question is around what types of companies are getting funded? Because for a long time it was B2B SaaS and everyone wanted B2B SaaS. But I would love to see, you showed some other examples, ice cream, some other things. Where are you seeing the funds going now? Into what type of companies?
Definitely generative AI, or just AI. I think the problem with AI is that I would almost argue it's not a sector, it's an enabler. And so saying that I'm running an AI company these days is almost like saying I'm running a tech company from 10 years ago. Everything's a tech company these days, and I would argue everything is very soon, if not already, going to be an AI company. So putting aside artificial intelligence, which is obviously very buzzy, so within healthcare, I think a lot of themes that I'm seeing are around patient-driven healthcare, I think is something that certainly here in the US is a big thing. And then anything around cost transparency, either on any side, whether you're a payer, provider, employer, patient, patient transparency is really important. Another area that I think is really interesting is the future of work. So we're all going to be living longer and in some cases working longer. And when I don't know what the mean age of the group of the room is, but certainly when I graduated from college, I was told things like, you're going to have 3 to 5 careers, right? Now, college graduates are told you're going to have like 9 to 11 careers. And so adult upskilling is a space I think I'm personally very passionate about and very interested in. And then I think also within healthcare, I think psychedelics are a really interesting space that a lot of people are certainly investing a lot of money in. Time will tell to see how those things play out, but those are some interesting areas that we're certainly looking at.
Angela, what's your view on venture studios? And also nowadays, like, exiting into IPO market is quite rare. So do you see, like, the concept of micro startups, getting more popular?
Okay, so first of all, what's a venture studio versus venture capital? Venture capital, they give money, typically own about 20% of a company. They'll sit on the board, but they're not actively managing the company. A venture studio is they're really co-building the company with the founder, and they will often take upwards of 50% equity. The pros of venture studios are you get a lot more hand-holding and help. It's also particularly interesting for international people who don't have US visas to work because you get employed by the venture studio. And so from like a visa perspective, it can be a way to be a founder if you need that. The con is 50% equity, right? As a founder, you're giving up a ton. And some venture studios definitely have a reputation of working the founders really, really hard at an unbearable pace. So, and the thing is that no 2 venture studios are the same. And so as with anything, just do your diligence, talk to people who've been through it and be like, how was it? Is it a sustainable lifestyle for 3, 5, 8 years? Do you think the equity you gave up was fair and relative to the value that you got? I think the overall sentiment right now in venture studios isn't that positive because I think people think that 50% equity split isn't very fair, but I think there are ones that add value.
Hi. What do you reckon the difference is in success rate in early stage investing if you were just to throw darts versus to make choices as well as you can reasonably expect it to do?
So I'll share a couple of data points with you. So if you just look at venture investments overall, 50% you don't get your money back. So 50% you give someone $1 million and you get $100,000 back, but less than 1x back. And then on the other end, so our objective is to do more than 10x every time we write a check. Between like 1% and 4% of all investments achieve that, over 10x. The objective of venture fund is 3x over 10 years. So most venture capital funds last for 10 years. The goal is to triple your investors' money. Only between 5 and 10% of venture capitalists are achieving those numbers. on average, the venture capital industry has barely outperformed the S&P 500 over the last 30 years. But the top decile of VCs have outperformed every other asset class, except for Bitcoin for a little while, but now we're beating Bitcoin again. So that's why people continue to do it. I don't know if that exactly answers your question of like how likely, but it is an incredibly speculative asset class. I didn't answer your IPO versus M&A question. The reality is, 90% of exits are through M&A, but something like 70 to 80% of the value is created out of IPOs, and so you need to hit home runs to invest in venture. Maybe last question before we talk a little bit about the Lang Center. Yes.
Professor, my question is more regards to operator converting into investors. What's your perspective on that, and how do you think an operator can actually bridge that gap that comes from traditional investing background?
It's a very common path to go from founder or operator within a startup to becoming a venture capitalist. People have tried to do the analysis to say who makes the best venture capitalist. No one has been able to figure it out so far. There isn't like this is the archetype that makes the best VC. So yes, being a former founder or former startup operator is a very common path, and you have a ton of value add, right? Because you have empathy for the founders. You know how hard it is to not know if you're going to make payroll in 3 months, which certainly happens. And you know how hard it is to fundraise and to get your first customer, whatever the case may be. So I think that founder empathy is great. I personally like an investing team with background diversity. I think it leads to better financial outcomes. So you have some folks on the team who maybe don't come from the startup background. The one problem with being a former founder, and I say this as a former founder, is we can have scar tissue and bias around like, well, that won't work because I tried it and it didn't work. That doesn't mean that it's not going to work just because I tried it and it didn't work. So I think it's good to have a balance of voices on the team. Again, intellectual diversity, well, diversity of all kinds leads to better outcomes. We know that. And so I like having a mix of different groups. But it's certainly a very coveted skill set to go from operator to VC, and it's a very natural path. OK. We'll have a little bit more time for Q&A, but I wanted to give you a few updates about the Lang Center. So the Lang Center is the center where we focus on 3 things. We focus on entrepreneurship, so launching companies. We focus on scaling startups, and then we also focus on investing in startups. So just want to show some fun stats that not everybody might be aware of. So this is about over the last decade. These are some of the events that have happened over the last year or so. So we had Bobby Brown come into a fireside chat. Ian Sigalo, some of you might know. He is the co-founder of Greycroft, I would argue one of the most successful venture capital funds here in New York City. Bob Hayes of First Round, also a very successful alum. He talked about early stage investing. And then we have a great podcast as well. These are just a couple of highlights of things that have happened over the last year or so. And the reason why I like to show this is because, again, I'm an alum at the school. I am the faculty director of the Lang Center, but I wasn't aware of how prolific our alumni network was until I really came to be faculty director. And so reminding people that we have really, really awesome alum founders and investors. We also have some great programs that a lot of them have been created since maybe you all were here. So Summer Startup Track is a program that takes students who are starting their own companies while they're at the school, and we have a 10-week summer program where it's basically like a mini accelerator, and they go through building a prototype and funding and talking to customers and all that kind of stuff. And we just had our biggest, actually right now we have our biggest class ever of 100 founders. And so that's how many students are like full-time this summer working on their startup. Columbia Build Lab started a few years ago. We pair CBS students and engineering students. And the Lang Center pays the engineering students to build the prototypes for the business school students. So the engineering students get real world experience and they add to their portfolio and they get paid. And then the MBA students get their prototypes built while they're in school. And so it's a really great thing that we started a few years ago. In a year, we will pair about 200 engineers with about 50 MBA startups. So that's another program. Kava, for all of you who are maybe founders in the room and are interested in reconnecting with the school, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a virtual accelerator. And so we have folks from all over the world. We have about 10 startups in each cohort. where you run through support, mentorship, access to funding. We have a demo day at the end where we have a couple hundred investors show up. It's a great way to get funding as well. And then the Columbia Venture Fellows program started also several years ago. It's an application-only program, and it's basically helping CBS students get into the venture world, which I'm sure a lot of you know is very difficult and competitive to get into. And so we have about 100 applications each year. We take 15 students. They automatically get into all the VC courses. We pair them with a VC fund during the time that they're here. And they also get to conduct diligence on the companies that are going into the Lang Fund, which I will talk about in a moment. So this is just a snapshot of some of the great programs that we have, but wanted folks to be aware, and then please spread the news to all of your friends who aren't here about all the great things that we're doing around entrepreneurship. And we have a lot of growth in the number of students who are working on startups while they're physically at CBS. We have more interest on the prospective student side, but also more interest while they're physically here. And then, as a result, we also have been supplying more and more funding each year. So we supply funding from like $1,000 micro grants all the way up to $100,000 checks from the Lang Fund that are more like traditional VC investments. So lots of good stuff happening. Okay, so this is the trivia part of today. This one is a question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask someone to raise their hand, and then, actually, let me make this go away for a second. So we have some gift bags for you, and they're all swag of CBS startups. I also want to highlight these because not everybody knows that these are CBS startups. So Crave Jerky, who's had Crave Jerky? Okay, so CBS founder. We've got Rec Pack, which is like a complete meal in a packet. We've got Wandering Bear. Who's had Wandering Bear coffee? It's in Whole Foods. We also have Bake Me Healthies, like healthy brownies, and then peeled snacks, which are like dried fruit. So that's in the gift pack. And so I have 3 trivia questions. I'm going to ask them. You're going to raise your hand, and then whoever gets closest gets one of these gift packs. Okay, so what do we think? Thank you. 12, 17, 15, 30. I'm going to give it to you. The answer is 60. So we have 60 courses. We break them into launch, invest, and scale. Just to give you, I think CBS has about like 300-ish electives, so a pretty good percentage are coming out of entrepreneurship and related to that. So huge interest of the school. And Lulu, or someone's we'll bring you a gift bag shortly. Yeah, sorry. Congratulations. Okay, next question. How many startups has the Lang Fund invested in? So the Lang Fund was started in 1999. If I were your professor, I could cold call you. Sorry, I saw your hand first. 600, all the way in the back? 350? 250? Okay. Yes. 200? 4,000. 1,000, okay. Okay, I might say that nobody gets this one. It's unfortunately maybe a little bit more modest than you are all thinking. The answer is 91. Maybe we'll, for the first 22 years of the Lang Fund existence, we only funded student startups. So every year, the graduating students would pitch, and as you can tell from the math, maybe like 3-ish companies would get funded each year that were student startups. And then starting in 2001, we opened up to an alumni. So now we're funding about 10 companies per year out of the Lang Fund. If you want us to fund more companies, donate to the Lang Fund, and then we can fund even more companies. But yeah, the answer is 91, and you can see some nice recent news about some of our portfolio companies. The next one you should get, because I've already told you the answer. So I'm going to ask for an exact number for this next one. I'm gonna, if only because, okay, yes, please. Yeah, go ahead. You think it was 20, 20, 3, all the way in the back? 7. This makes me very sad because I told you the answer about 15 minutes ago. This is a good lesson for me. It did not stay up long. That is true. I'm going to give it to you. The answer is 22. I will bet you that most of you did not know that these companies were started by CBS alum. I didn't until, yes, please take photos, tweet it, share it around the world, because why do we, as CBS alum, not know this? And I didn't know it until I became the Lang faculty director. So a lot of brands that I'm sure you interact with regularly are proud CBS alum. Okay. For those of you who want to, this is like the world's biggest QR code that I've ever seen in my life. For those of you who want to stay engaged with the Lang Center, this QR code will lead you to a PDF. It's got a few things. The first thing it has is it has a link to link. What is link? Link is Lang Investment Network Connection. I'm looking at my team for confirmation. Investor Network Connection. Okay. And what it tells you is all of the Columbia companies that are fundraising. And it's like an Airtable that you can look at to see what companies are fundraising, so that way you can reach out and invest in early stage startups. You can also see what startups are coming out of CBS.
Recommend us to kind of get more information about how to become a successful angel investors.
Yes, you can take a course that's
37 angels.
So, okay, yes, 37 Angels, yes, which is the company that I run. But separately, I would say Columbia Business School has executive education courses. We have a course on angel investing. So if you just look up angel investing, Columbia Business School, we have a course on that. We also have a course on how to be an early stage investor called Foundations of Venture Capital, which you can take through executive education. And as alumni, I believe you get a 25% discount. But yeah, those are two resources. I saw a hand maybe right in front or right around. Yes, please.
Your presentation was terrific. Your work is terrific. And I think one of the things that I noticed with some of the other academic institutions out there is that sometimes there's almost a level of discomfort to bring mentors and bring people in from the outside world, but it's those mentors and alums and people who affiliate and are connected to the school that bring a lot of the lifeblood into these startups. And as I said, I won't name names, but there's other institutions that are very limited in terms of how engaged and how welcoming they are to people from the outside world. So for everybody here like me who has gray hair, there is a value to people who have been around the block a few times, and it's really wonderful to see what you're doing.
Thank you for saying that. Not a plant. We didn't pay him. But thank you. I appreciate that. But with that, I do think it's a great time to showcase our really awesome founders. So you're going to hear from 3 founders today, all CBS alum, solving really great problems and doing really innovative things. We're going to start with Nina from Epibone.
Hi, I'm Nina Tandon. I'm an alum of both the business school and the engineering school, so I could have gotten paid to work on my own startup, perhaps, if the timing were now. But I'm a biomedical engineer and CEO and co-founder of a company called Epibone. We care about doing what we do because as a society, we're sitting on a bit of a ticking time bomb. Bone is the most transplanted human material after blood, and as a society, we're replacing millions of joints per year, oftentimes because of just a couple millimeters of damaged cartilage. None of this would be a problem, except many of us are getting injured earlier in life and living longer and longer. And so it's clear that if we're getting injured at 15 and living till 115, that we need our implants to last as long as we do. So what we do that's different And it really is different, is that we as engineers here at Columbia learned that we could take stem cells and use technologies like robotic cell culture techniques, yes, AI, and stem cell science to take stem cells and coax them into becoming living, anatomically precise bone and cartilage that has the potential to function on day one, but also last as long as we do. And so who are we and why do we think we can do this? I was lucky 20 years ago to land in the lab of Bob Langer at MIT as an electrical engineer. His lab, it was a kind of hotbed of innovation, and I worked very closely with Gordana Vonyak-Novakovic, who was in the process from moving from the Langer lab here to Columbia University to establish her operations here. Bob's lab has spun out companies that are reinvented medical science many times over, things like drug delivery, cancer immunotherapies, and most recently, Moderna Therapeutics. And we have brought together a very diverse group of clinicians, scientists, and entrepreneurs to make sure that this can become a reality and reach patients. So we combine a lot of deep tech modalities like AI, stem cell science, robotic cell culture techniques to essentially do something very natural. Turns out the same signals that drive stem cell differentiation inside the body also drive stem cell differentiation outside the body. So we're using these techniques to essentially mimic the natural conditions for tissue development so that we can deliver something truly natural to patients. So we have, I'm very proud to say that we founded 10 years ago, and we've brought 2 products successfully to clinical trials. So this is the first and second stem cell-based tissue product that the FDA has approved for clinical use. The first is for an indication in craniofacial repair, because we wanted to choose an indication where shape mattered, the treatment options were not good, and ideally we could qualify for accelerated approval pathways through the FDA. We treated 6 patients in a phase 1/2 historic clinical trial. The bones fit perfectly, no adverse events related to our product, and the bones integrated and vascularized within 4 to 6 months. We're looking to repeat this success now with a second clinical trial that was greenlit by FDA for partial joint replacements in the knee. So we are hoping to disrupt the world of skeletal reconstruction and make sure nobody in the future will have to get a metal replacement to a joint just because of a couple millimeters of damaged cartilage. We have a suite of IP based upon foundational IP we exclusively licensed from Columbia when we spun out 10 years ago. But this IP covers not just how to grow bone and cartilage, but how to ship, how to scalably manufacture, and how to surgically implant those tissues. We're at a very key moment in our trajectory now where we have established ourselves and been solely focused here in the US, but we are looking to centers of excellence and medical tourism now throughout the world, specifically in Thailand and the United Arab Emirates as we look for a launching pad to launch our global efforts. So with this business model innovation for going global that's happening in tandem with our scientific innovation, I'm really looking forward to accelerating our our speed of creating value. So if you're interested in learning more, please do feel free to reach out. I'm Nina Tandon at Epibone.com, Nina at Epibone.com, and we have an open round of funding now, and we're looking to offer insider terms to folks who are part of the Columbia Network. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to present, and also thank you to the Columbia community for your support all these years.
Thank you so much, Nina. Next up, we have Avery, who is a newly minted Columbia grad from 2 weeks ago, who is going to be talking about Rubicon Robotics.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Awesome. Nina, that was really cool. I think what you're doing is amazing. Can everyone just give Nina a round of applause? It was really awesome. I say this also as an engineer, but more on the hardware side rather than the human side. My name is Avery Schonberger. I am the founder and CEO of Rubicon Robotics, where we are automating the future of athletic film training, starting with swimming. The problem that we are addressing right now is that swim filming and analytics cost way too much money for most teams. Pretty much every single competitive swimmer and coach uses film as an integral part of their practice, but acquiring it requires a lot of effort, it's very manual, it's labor intensive, and it's cost prohibitive. The alternatives that exist are really poor, such as you can see some devices up here in figures 2 and 3 at the bottom that are either way, way too expensive, like that Olympic filming rig, or require manual installation, like the set of cameras in Figure 2. So our solution is to acquire film using autonomous robots and analyze it using AI. Our swimmer bot automates the entire process by tracking swimmers across the pool, filming them, uploading the video to our platform immediately, and then having computer vision analytics that allow coaches and athletes to get feedback on their stroke and their form immediately. As to really what we look like, our product is designed to be completely seamless, taking voice commands from the users and integrating perfectly to their current practices. The robot itself sits on the side of the pool, driving along next to the swimmer with an arm that reaches underwater and a waterproof camera at the bottom. There's another camera on the arm so that we have complete computer vision powered steering and sensors on either end to avoid obstacles. And of course, everything is waterproof if you're putting it next to a pool. In terms of the market, it's a surprisingly huge market for this, but maybe it's not so surprising once you understand how much many American parents are willing to pay for their high schoolers' sports and maybe their own triathlon training. To start with, though, we're really focusing on select college teams and a lot of gyms and private training in the area as we go into our first summer trials within the coming weeks. In terms of what else is out there, people are doing this, again, very manually. With the actual competition directly, that's not only analytics tools, we are optimal for nearly every single user pain point in this world. How we're monetizing is through sales, leases, and subscriptions on the software, where the sales and leases are for the hardware, depending on which organization. Colleges will most likely buy this, and gyms will most likely lease it for a monthly fee. So far, over the past year, we've made tremendous progress building a full web application, an actual prototype of our robot that will be tested over the summer. And we've also gotten incredible customer feedback from D1 coaches, clinic operators, and even a 2020 Olympic swimmer. Looking ahead towards the summer, we'll be rolling out our first trials again in the next coming weeks. Coach Jim Bolster and Columbia Swim and Dive are going to be our first customers for the summer, and we're also going to be working with a couple gyms in the area that have expressed some interest in this as well. Again, to reintroduce myself, my name is Avery Schonberger. I'm the CEO and founder. I am a recent Columbia grad from a couple weeks ago and have a background in mechanical, electrical, and software engineering. My product team behind me is also very incredible, with experience at NASA, with software that is actually in space, and experience at 2 world-class research labs. We also have Jim Bolster coming on and doing advising for us over the summer because he has 35 years of D1 swimming coaching experience. In terms of where we are at with funding, we're currently raising a friends and family and angel round. We're about a fifth of the way through that with commitments so far. This is really to get us to full-scale launch in the fall, 500 users by November, and 50 robots in use by the start of 2025. This is really just for employee hiring, manufacturing, distribution, and development, which are the majority of our expenses, but we are doing this incredibly capitally efficient since we are developing most of this in-house to start and outsourcing large-scale production. So I'd just like to thank you all for being here and listening to this pitch. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or approach me after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Avery. And then lastly, we have Hidayat from Tarmac, who is class of 2023. So, thank you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you for the great presentations. I'm Hidayat, and I'm a co-founder of Tarmac. We are building AI dispatchers for the trucking market. I have over 10 years of experience in logistics and transportation management, and during my career, I built and managed different regional offices of different international shipping companies. And together with me, I have a great team who are bringing great experience in tech, computer science, cybersecurity, and machine learning. So did you know that around 35% of the trucks today, they are driving empty? They don't carry any freight on board. But what's the reason behind that? Let me share a short story with you. Last summer, I was visiting my friend. He owns like 10 trucks. He's a dispatcher. His name is George. He lives in New Jersey, Parsippany. So I was going to his office to actually learn about his processes, what are the pain points. And then I was talking to him and asking questions and observing the situation there. And he was controlling, like he was calling he was trying to find the loads on the trucking marketplaces for his trucks because he wanted to find the loads as soon as possible. Otherwise, it's idle drivers or empty driving. Then he was calling brokers or emailing them to get more information about the loads. He was estimating profits and costs and informing his drivers about this opportunity. And by that time, he wanted to get the final confirmation. He was losing that loads. And I asked him, how much time does it take for you, like on average? He said, hours and sometimes days. So it results in idle drivers or empty driving. After that, I interviewed more than 25 companies. They said that it takes up to 3 days sometimes to find loads. They said that they use only one trucking marketplace, despite having dozens of solutions. It's not because they don't want to use other trucking marketplaces. It's because they don't want to get confused by all this data. Like there's transparency issues. It's lots of work for them. And despite using only one trucking marketplace, they think that the trucking marketplace they use to find loads for their trucks are not transparent enough. And the impact is huge. For empty driving and this inefficiency, it's $360 billion revenue loss for the trucking companies. Drivers are driving 3.5 billion hours empty each year. And the empty driving accounts for 6% of the emissions coming from the transportation industry only in the US. So welcome to the era of co-pilots. What do we do here? We integrate our system with the third-party APIs of different trucking marketplaces, trucking software platforms, different trucking products. And we train our co-pilot to learn from this third-party data to be smart enough to execute 80% of the dispatching tasks. Not only it finds from among the millions of data the loads 100 times faster and more accurate, but also sending emails, dispatching the drivers, and also communicating with customers and booking the loads. And we are planning to reduce the empty driving by at least 50% by that. If before Tarmac, the dispatcher could only handle 3 trucks at most, after that solution, it will boost at least 10 trucks. That's a huge productivity boost. We are planning to charge $500 per user per month and getting 20% commission from our integration partners. The market is big. It's growing. Only in the US, there are more than 1 million truck owners, dispatchers, and long-distance freight businesses. And why are we different? Just don't pay attention to this chart. I will just tell you. We are integrating with a third-party data. This is unbiased data. This is high-quality data. This is official API integration. And it takes time, by the way. And we achieved lots of great milestones. Integrating with the biggest trucking marketplace in the US, this process takes a few months, convincing them, asking them to share their data. Now we have, on average, more than 1 million real-time data points on a daily basis to our co-pilot. And we train on that and making it smarter and exponentially smarter. And we showed our prototype to more than 30 companies. We got the feedback, and we know what they want, what kind of the solution or value will bring to customers. The number one, transparency, information consolidation. And number two, our star product, which will be ready, hopefully, by the end of the year, AI route planner. They want to know, if I'm in New York right now, I want to come back in 7 days, and what should I do? So it will give you the results. Go here, pick the cargo here. You will maximize your profit. That's our product, actually. And to do that, we are raising $1.5 million, and to mainly build our product, 50% of the funds will be spent on that. And our vision is that no money lost driving empty and no truck driver sits idle. Thanks so much.
Thank you to the founders for being here. Thank you to all of you for being here. And then if you would indulge me, I also just wanted to thank the Lang team. So we have Lara who's here, we have Gabriel, and we have Lulu. None of this would be possible without them. Thank you so much for all that you do. And with that, enjoy the rest of reunion. Thank you, everyone.